A retired veteran announced in front of everyone that the wedding was cancelled, just because the bride had ordered vegetarian food. I watched him wield fear and paranoia to control the entire wedding scene, yet no one dared to oppose him. I didn't speak up immediately. Instead, I began quietly collecting evidence, seeking witnesses, and gradually exposing his true nature to the light. Months later, I saw him trembling at a street corner, kneeling, full of remorse and disgrace. Years earlier, shortly after returning to my country, I had gone to a veteran support group seeking help for the nightmares that sometimes surged up. In that organization, there was a veteran named Henry. He would drink heavily at night and appear normal by day. After a minor argument, he rifled through my pockets and pulled out an old keepsake my mother had given me, mocking me publicly. "You can't even get home without making people feel sorry for you. Pathetic." At that moment, I was humiliated beyond measure, forced to leave the room, while everyone else watched silently, as if a chasm existed under the same roof, impossible to cross. Later, at work, I tried to earn respect through efficiency and composure. But whenever someone discovered my military background, remarks like, "You should star in a war movie," would be tossed jokingly. Worse, once at an annual meeting, a supervisor mimicked my actions in training in front of everyone, and the room erupted in laughter while my face burned with shame. These humiliations weren't isolated incidents, they were like dripping water, slowly eroding self-esteem. It was precisely these experiences that shaped me, not breaking me, but teaching me to observe, to hide, and to wait. Henry's humiliation showed me that when shame is public and wielded with power, a straightforward response can be twisted into recklessness. You cannot challenge a group that controls the narrative empty-handed. You need evidence, patience, and a plan not swayed by emotion. The bride listened to me, her fingers tightly twisting her palms. What are you planning to do?" "I don't want to act impulsively," I said. "I want the truth to emerge in the cleanest way possible. Not because I want revenge for his past humiliations, but because I don't want another family torn apart by him. Your wedding isn't evidence of wrongdoing, but he turned it into a stage to display his power. I want him to lose control at the moment he is most proud, not at your expense." She was silent, her eyes reflecting complex emotions. "Can you really do that?" "I can, and I must," I said firmly. This wasn't an empty slogan. In the following weeks, I began preparations, not with violence, not with lies, but in a precise, calm way to reveal Thomas's true nature to everyone. He was not a hero, but a man enslaved by fear and paranoia. The planning process was like assembling a complex puzzle. First, I discreetly contacted several friends working in veterans communities to learn about Thomas's history. They confirmed that after returning home, Thomas had never undergone comprehensive psychological treatment. His veteran compensation was handled by his family, and for years he had relied on alcohol and memories to maintain his self-esteem. Some had documented his radical statements at community meetings, others had captured videos of his inflammatory speech in public. Next, I sought testimony from witnesses present at the wedding dinner. A server had stayed behind after the event, her hands holding unwashed plates, her face pale. She quietly told me she had overheard Thomas arguing heatedly outside the restaurant, "These young people are eating vegetarian to please those who betray our nation." She added that he had grabbed his collar, his tone threatening. That statement was key. Thomas's outbursts were never random, they followed a predictable pattern. Third, I organized the evidence systematically and quietly shared it in the days before the wedding with people close to Thomas yet reasonable, his niece, a few old friends. I didn't make any aggressive statements, merely presented facts, early complaints, meeting notes, witness testimony, video excerpts. My goal was not to catch him but to give those around him time to process the truth before being shocked afterward. At the same time, I didn't use my military background as leverage. I had my principles. The morality of revenge cannot rely on distorted narratives. My service was my experience, not a tool to gain sympathy or manipulate others. Instead, I relied on ordinary witnesses, documents, and time, letting the truth reveal itself at the right moment. A few days later, the groom approached me, looking exhausted. If you really intend to release this, you could destroy him, and maybe our family. I don't want that. Then don't let the wedding be under his control, I said calmly. Either postpone it or bring him back so we can confront him face to face. Let everyone hear his words alongside the facts, rather than letting his anger escalate things. He fell silent, weighing two forms of pain. Finally, he nodded. Okay, I'll arrange a family meeting. A week before the wedding, the groom held a family meeting in his parents' living room. Curtains drawn, the fireplace unlit, yet the room felt cloaked in invisible ice. Thomas sat at one end of the sofa, nervously twisting an old coin, his eyes wary. The bride leaned on her husband's shoulder, joined by the groom's aunt, a few old friends, and two neighbors who had witnessed Thomas's behavior. I just want everyone to speak openly, the groom began, keeping his tone as calm as possible. Dad, we all know your patriotism, but today we want to hear calmly why you acted that way at the dinner. Thomas sneered, voice sharp, I am here as a veteran to protect this home from corruption. Seeing you eat that food felt like betrayal. You shouted, wedding cancelled, and threatened everyone at the restaurant, the aunt interjected gently. We were all scared. What you did could hurt our family, your grandchildren. Thomas's face flushed purple. I'm defending my values. That's my right. I didn't speak immediately. Silence hung like an unstruck bell. Then I stood, pushing a thin stack of printed documents onto the coffee table. Each page bore dates, times, and meeting records. These are excerpts from community meetings, I said, voice low but firm, and a transcript of the restaurant incident. They're not meant to shame you, Thomas, but to show a pattern, not a one-time lapse. Thomas's brow twitched, defiance unmoved. Who are you to label me? I am someone who has survived the battlefield, I replied briefly. I have seen people kill over ideals. After returning, I saw people like you instill fear. Not because you're a veteran, but because you project your unhealed wounds onto the innocent. The room fell silent. Thomas's hands began to tremble. He placed the coin back in his pocket, like an actor caught in the spotlight. The aunt murmured, we don't want to cast you out, but we need you to admit that night's behavior was harmful. Admit? Thomas shouted. Admit I fought for my country? Is that shameful? You actually want to take a trivial eating choice and make this an issue? He stood, voice rising, you young people don't understand sacrifice. True, an old friend from the army added, voice deep, Thomas endured the horrors of war. Sometimes his temper flares because of memories he carries. I nodded. We should treat him gently, but that doesn't mean tolerating intimidation. We have evidence that he has repeatedly expressed extreme views publicly, attempting to influence young people. He needs help, not control of a wedding. Thomas's eyes shifted from anger to confusion, chest heaving. I pressed play on a recording from that night outside the restaurant. Thomas's voice rang out, high and harsh, these vegetarians are traitors. How can you tolerate this? The server's voice trembled, dishes clattered in the background, and guests were heard gasping. The room fell silent. Thomas's face stiffened, then changed color. He gripped the sofa edge, trying to maintain balance. The aunt whispered, we've never heard you like this. This isn't me. Thomas suddenly jumped, sounding like an enraged beast. You're framing me. Treating me like a criminal. We're not framing you, Thomas, the groom said, voice trembling yet clear. We are protecting our wedding and everyone present. You need help, not permission. Thomas's chest heaved, tears forming, but angered Salt more than sorrow. They cut my words into fragments, he accused, pointing at me. We present the facts, I replied, so you can acknowledge them. And some of these are not fragments, you've said similar things in meetings many have heard. You instill fear. That is reality. Suddenly, his tone softened. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. The war changed me, and I don't know how to stop. The atmosphere shifted into complex compassion, people began whispering. Evidence alone couldn't compel him to admit guilt. He needed to face shame and the pain of abandonment. I changed strategy, from public shaming to confronting him with a chance for redemption. Thomas, I stepped closer, voice gentle, if you admit that night you lost control, we will support you in seeking therapy. You don't need to kneel or be mocked. We want you to recover, not be punished. He paused, stunned, hearing an unfamiliar offer. The aunt dabbed her tears. We can find a good doctor, someone recommended in the community. Thomas sagged into the sofa, voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to lose you. But I'm afraid of being seen as I am now. You've already been seen, the groom said softly. Now the question is whether you're willing to change. It was the first sign of a possible breakthrough. Thomas's shoulders shook as he muttered a small, fragile okay, like ice breaking, those shards remained cold. Yet the real turning point came a few days later. A longer video surfaced from a neighbor who had filmed Thomas at a veterans gathering, berating pacifists. He spoke of returning young people to the right track, words extreme and commanding. The video made Thomas face the extent of his impact. Neighbors avoided him, and old friends fell silent. That night, he drank heavily and removed photos from the walls, as if shedding the weight of history. On the wedding day, rumors swirled through town. The bride suggested downsizing, inviting only close family. The groom agreed, holding a simple vow ceremony on the church lawn. They chose authenticity over fear. Thomas did not attend. He left a letter, void of anger, filled with remorse and requests for forgiveness. He included the old coin, left it at the door, and departed. The bride opened the letter, tears and smiles mingling. People had mixed feelings about my actions. Some thought them harsh, others saw the saving of a family. The groom grasped my hand, voice choked, "Thank you. Without you, things could have been worse." Thomas's outcome was not a spectacular public downfall nor unearned forgiveness. He felt loss and fear. His dignity stripped, he began pleading for change. His trembling and begging were not for punishment but to learn to stop wielding suffering as a weapon. Months later, I encountered Thomas on a street corner. Haggard, plainly dressed, without the military glow, he stopped and croaked, "If I beg now, will you forgive me?" I didn't answer immediately, merely observing him amid the afternoon sun, starkly different from that night at the restaurant. His eyes held no defiance, only fear and a desperate will to survive. "You've hurt many," I said calmly. "But you are beginning to understand your mistakes. That is a start." He knelt, hands clasped like a child praying to fate, voice broken, "Please, tell me what to do. I'm afraid of losing anyone again." At that moment, I saw a soul held captive by fear. His broken voice, tears running through wrinkles, were like water on hardened earth, small but real. "Go to therapy, regularly," I instructed. "Don't weaponize your pain. Get medical checkups, avoid alcohol, see doctors, attend support groups, and, most importantly, apologize to those you've hurt, without demanding immediate forgiveness. Healing takes time." Thomas shuddered as if pulled from a cliff. His pleas were no longer defiant but complete collapse. That power he once believed would command eternal respect had crumbled. Years later, the couple celebrated their marriage in a small church. Thomas did not attend, but later sent a letter expressing that he was in treatment, striving to become someone worthy of his family's embrace. The groom read it, tears in his eyes, turning to me, "What you did was hard, but someone had to do it. Thomas's ending was neither dramatic public humiliation nor costless forgiveness. He felt fear, lost dignity, and began seeking change. His trembling and pleading reflected the principle: the aim was not to witness his suffering, but to guide him toward growth, letting him face consequences while offering a path to repair.